Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. I am so excited to finally get Amie Lieurance on here, one of my favorite people in the Indy investor world. And even though we're super competitors, and like Amie and I came in at the same time, we're both in a dispo position there for a while at the same time, competing against each other. But no, I really appreciate Amie and just what New Paradox does and the relationship that we have. And we're just talking before we got on here, like we do not spend enough time together and do not spend enough time talking and things like that. So Amie, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I mean, gosh, during the quarantine last year, Brian and you and I talked a lot. We talked every
I
week.
know.
We did some videos for one of the local networking groups here, and that was so much fun.
Yeah.
We were kind of spiffing John Krasinski's little Wednesday things.
The
But
Wednesday
it's good to be
wins, and
here.
yeah, good
Wednesday
stuff.
wins, yes.
So,
Great to
no,
be here.
yeah, thanks for having me, or thanks for being on here with me and stuff. So, it's funny. I always picture you and I. We kind of came into real estate investing almost at the same time, kind of the same year and everything, and almost in the same roles and started the same stuff. So,
Yes.
I feel like we have this bond. So, I thought it'd be really neat to just do an episode with you on just kind of how why Indy is such a great place to invest, but then also how it's changed over those last, 4 to 5 years that we've been doing this and been involved in this and stuff. But
Yeah.
let's start real quick. Just give me a little bit of your background. And I know a ton of people know you. If they don't know you, they should know you if they're buying properties here in Indy. So, but if, give me just a little bit of background. What were you doing, before you got into real estate investing, before Will snatched you up and got you started working for his team and things like that? What were you doing? And then kind of what made you get into, working with Will and what you guys are doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had no, real estate experience. My background is marketing. I had worked for Simon Property Group, the largest mall owner in the U.S. Now, I don't know the world. I don't know. And that's kind of where I started after college. I went to IU, go Hoosiers. I know you're a Buckeye fan, but
I
I had
will
to
have
throw that
slide
in
on this one. It's all right.
there. Had to throw that in there. So my background's really marketing. I worked for a mortgage company, commercial lending back in like 2006 and 7, and then they went under, with the big crash. And then I worked for, kind of an infomercial company that sold real estate
Nice.
courses, Carlton Sheets. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
used to work for him. I worked
All
for him
right.
for a couple of years, and then my husband and we grew up in Indiana, so we were in Chicago at the time. We wanted to move back here closer to family, and we've been in Indy now for about 13 years. And just even where I live in Fishers. It's crazy to see the difference between when we moved here. It's unrecognizable. So I feel like Indy as a whole, the suburbs and everything are just blowing up.
I
But
feel like I
didn't, like I
suburb
said,
battles going on. I feel like Carmel,
we do.
Fishers, Westfield are all trying to compete
Yes.
against each other
The
and
whole
stuff.
like
So
Hamilton County is like
yeah,
boom. It's crazy. So I have 3 kiddos, and my husband and I will move back here so that I could stay home with them as well. So being a stay-at-home mom, I always have kind of worked. I did marketing for a plumbing, heating and air and electric company here in Indy for about 5 years. So my oldest was 5. And then I did some direct sales stuff. And that's kind of what put me with Will and Mandy, and they were like, "Hey, she's really good at follow up, and that stuff. We should talk to her." And I know them personally outside of this business, so it was a cool opportunity. I was like, "Yeah, tell me a little bit more about it." My husband and I always kind of wanted to do some flips, and we kind of lived in our flips, I guess you could say, over the last like 2 houses before that. So anyways, that's kind of what led to it. Will had a conversation with me at the time. He only had a few people working for him. It was going to be, very part-time, and it just sounded really exciting. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I jumped in, and it quickly became, a full-time job, which I still love today. I'm still doing that same role, but that's where I want to be. There have been opportunities, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I like this. I love
now
working with the investors, and
yeah,
I'm good
you
at
do a
dispo.
great
It's all
job.
good.
There you go. So you do a great job with it. And what's your official title? Is the
Director of Client Success. I made
client
that up.
success? I like it. So that's your marketing background, and you're like, yeah, this is what it should be.
Right.
So I love it. So no, you do. I know you do an amazing job, and love seeing that role and things. And I want to get into a little bit of this is, in that dispo role and that director of client success role is one of those first things one of those first conversations you probably have a lot of times is, why Indianapolis? Why is Indianapolis such a great place to invest? So what's your little elevator pitch that you throw out here to everybody?
I mean, Indy is great. I feel like right now the real estate market is hot almost everywhere.
Yeah.
But ever since I started, just over 4 years ago, Indy has always been great. I had no idea living here already, and you probably felt the same way, like you were a teacher, I had no idea that Indy was a great market to invest in real estate, especially for buy and holds because of the cash flow. You can't get that cash flow many places at all, in the US. So that's why Indy's great for out of state investors who are looking for that cash flow play. There's some appreciation, but we're not known, for appreciation as much. So I mean, Indy's it's stable. Our budget is balanced. Our state is in a great economic standpoint. We are not as affected by recession as like the East and West Coasts are and things like that. So we have a lot of great things going for us as far as just a state in general. But then the city of Indianapolis is trying to attract, millennials and those kinds of tech jobs and things like that. So it's quickly becoming really popular for those reasons too. So even, the flip market is awesome. I mean, it's just all around, it's hot.
Yeah. So I feel like it's just a great city in general. And I never really knew of any before I moved. I visited Indy a couple of times before I even started dating my wife who was living out here. I'm like, oh, this is actually a fun city. I enjoy this.
Yeah.
Stuff. You knew it for the 500 and that was kind of it and stuff. But
I know we moved from Chicago and I was like, oh, I loved Chicago. And I was like, oh, I just hate to move. But we were coming back and forth every weekend to see family for, baby showers, wedding showers, and it made sense. And I was like, I don't know if I want to live in Indy, but I love it. So glad that we did that.
Yeah. And you see so many things. The real estate market is of course booming, like you say, kind of everywhere is, but Indy has that place of like, hey, if you want some steady stuff of like, hey, you're going to be safe here. Kind of, it's a great market to start. Or if you're just, or you just want that, you're a little bit conservative and you're like, hey, I just want something steady. Indy is that market for you. But there's so many other things that are going on in the city too, of just like the job growth that's happening, all the businesses that are moving here. It's fantastic. We were just talking before this too, of even some of the chefs right now are starting to get recognized like nationally here in Indianapolis, which you never thought of Indy as like a foodie city or anything like that. There's some cool spots. We were just talking about, like, you were naming some places that I've never heard of. I was naming places that you never heard of. And so
I know.
that's fun stuff. No, very, very cool.
I need to get out of my bubble more and try some more of those places.
Yeah, there we go. So I want to talk to you a little bit, just as you're talking about like some of those changes and like, why it is such a great place and stuff like that. You and I came into this about the same time. And I feel like the investment opportunities are a little bit different and some of them have changed. When we started, you could still buy a property in Fountain Square for like, $30,000. And now that same property is like 100, 120 and,
exactly.
things like that. So
completely redone. Yeah, for sure.
What are some of those other big changes that you're really seeing when it comes to just the investment world or Indianapolis in general?
I mean, I think like the secret's out, I feel like as far as investors go, there's a lot more competition now. I think more and more people have heard about Indy over the years. There are a lot of groups that are focused on Indy, even out of state. I know California has their own meetups focused on Indianapolis and things like that. So I feel like the word is out. There are more people talking about it. And there are so many hot neighborhoods like Sobro. Like we had Broad Ripple and now we have Sobro, and Sobro keeps going more and more south. And it's just, it's kind of crazy. I know Will, our owner, he bought one of the first houses. I think he was the first to flip on Eastern right there in St. Clair Place. And he bought that house for, I don't even know. He bought it right before I started, when I would say like 30 to 50. I don't know. And then flipped it. And he was like one of the first on that street. And now, the whole street's probably
now done. That person can probably flip that property again almost.
Oh, probably. They probably could. They're selling in the 300s up,
Yeah.
So it's crazy what you've seen. I feel like also not just Indianapolis, but also the suburbs and the surrounding counties, especially the surrounding counties. We've had a lot of good success in like Shelbyville and Greenfield, and we do a lot of stuff in Anderson, and it's kind of crazy, that you do have to focus outside of just the 465 circle, because there's not enough properties, there's not enough inventory right now for hungry investors. So
Right.
kind of have to focus outwards a little bit, but those places too have blown up.
Yeah, so there's so much opportunity, like you said, just even outside of that, of there's
Mhm.
places like we've done some good deals like in down in Canby, or even like
Yeah, can
like
be.
around
Yeah.
there. So
Yes.
it's great. It's cool to see that growth of 2 years ago I probably would never looked at a deal really in Canby or anything like that. Now it's like, yeah, I'll buy that in there all day. So
Yeah. You know what's funny? The very first deal I sold was actually in Canby.
yeah,
But then it was like a long time until I sold another one in Canby.
right.
That's kind of weird. I don't know.
So that's cool. Are there any, if we think about inside the loop real quick, is there any neighborhoods that 4 or 5 years ago that you were like, no, like a man, or you got a property across your plate, you're like, oh man, I got to sell another one here, or man, I'm not a big fan of this area. Are there any areas that you were like you thought about it then, but then now you're like, oh man, I will buy there all day long. I love over there. Like one of my favorite
Yeah.
neighborhoods is selling.
I mean, I would say even like Hallville.
Yeah.
Hallville, on the west side, Riverside area. I mean, there is still some sketch areas over there. But that's been something I feel like when I send stuff out there, I have a lot more interest. I have a lot of people going to look at those houses now versus before, because of stuff that's being, built out there, 16 Tech and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But gosh, I mean, there's so many, Mapleton Fall Creek, which that one's been huge, like Sobro, like I said. I'm trying to think here, like just the Promise Zone areas, the 10th and rural, and what Indy East has kind of done in that area. You drive, up and down rural, it's like, whoa, like every house right in that area. There's a lot of new development. I was just reading an article yesterday from the Indianapolis Business Journal about, it's called NOMA, NOMA, north of Mass Ave, where the Bottle Works district is. They just converted the old Coca-Cola bottling plant, right?
Yep.
Into this huge, it's almost like a food court, like for adults, with beverages, and it's so fun. I've been there a few times, and great food, and with some shops and things. It's stuff you wouldn't expect to see in Indiana.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Indiana, we're, farm state.
It is kind of fun because you have like places that like you really do feel like you can vacation here. Like you were talking about, you live in Fishers, I live in Carmel. Like it's like, hey, we need to like take a vacation down to like Mass Ave and like hang out down there and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. And those neighborhoods that you kind of mentioned too, like I think 10th and Rural is a really good example of a place that like, last, or 4 or 5 years ago, like, no, I don't, I don't really have any buyers there. Like a little, it's tough. Like you have to be an experienced investor to be able to buy there. Now it's like, hey, like anybody I feel like can have success there. You got to like try to like not have success there almost and stuff. So yeah.
Well, and it was kind of just west of rural before, kind of when I started. That was where it was starting to pop a little bit, and now it's going east too. We just had a properties over there, and I was looking at all the comps, and I was like, wow, I just need to get down there and drive it more.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's so cool to see, all those opportunities like that. I throw Riverside into that, kind of area as well. Just like, it's not one of my favorite areas and things like that, but it's just like, wow, it's really cool to see what has happened and the changes, that's kind of coming around down there. And some of the stuff like even, I know Fountain Square has got huge in the end, but then even go like, once you go south of the creek down there, I'm just like, what's going on down there? Or even like Beach Grove was an area that like, I know it's kind of a neighborhood. It's kind of like, it's kind of nice. It's okay. And something like that. Now it's like, oh my gosh, like any day, like any property, like I'm buying like twice of what I would have bought like, 3 years ago and stuff. So.
It's all like 2 ones under 1,000 square feet with the basement, it's awesome. I mean, Kennedy King, like,
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. I am in a hotel right now, so I don't have the best internet service, but Amie, you got cut off. And I think it was excited about what you were saying about Kennedy King is really what
yeah. Maybe that was something I shouldn't have said. I don't know. Neighborhoods like that, Kennedy King, what else? Arsenal Heights, like just different other areas that are down there. Also Forest Manor. That was an area, we had a couple buyers for that area when I first started, but not a lot. And I've seen flips in the comps. I'm like, flips in Forest Manor? What?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Some of
Community
the neighbors.
Heights, like the area, Community Heights are above like Little Flower, like one of my favorite areas and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
So, that's been, I feel like 46218 has had such just like, a negative connotation. Like I'd buy anything down there. I would invest in anything down there.
yeah.
Like it's a great area. So, there's a lot of stuff going in there. And speaking of like just different areas and changes, I feel like a big change in like mindset with a lot of our investors too, which has been such a positive thing for them. And I was talking about this for a while, and I think you and I have even had conversations with this of like how so many investors were so stuck on just getting like a 3-1, and like they
Mhm.
were bypassing on great deals that were 2-1s.
Yeah,
And I love
yeah,
seeing, and maybe it was like the lack of inventory that kind of opened people's minds up a little bit, or maybe a couple of their buddies did it or whatever. But I see a lot of people having success with like 2-1s right now, and like as rental
yeah.
properties. I'm like, you can definitely do that, or even flips or whatever it is. And I think Indy
Mhm.
has just the opportunity to do whatever. If it's a small house or, a bigger house, if it's a cookie cutter or anything like that, there's a lot of opportunity for about any type of investor that you are. So,
I definitely agree. And there are so many 2-1s that come
yeah,
across, I feel like, from wholesalers, and there's just a lot of inventory of 2-1s in Indianapolis. So I feel like keep your mind open. Don't narrow your focus too much that you're missing out on some
yeah,
great opportunity.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, great advice right there. Um, what are some things that, so you've worked with, a bunch of buyers over the last few years and, have seen buyers have success. Some buyers have like, oh man, they just, they were passing on deals, or maybe they fell short on something. And we've seen a
Yeah.
lot of that. What are some things that you think like investors especially as they're getting into this, or maybe they've been successful in another market and they're moving to this market, or what are some things that you feel like, investors really don't think about or don't consider, or things they just maybe overlook when they're thinking about Indianapolis?
I think the biggest thing is to put a team together. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you can't do this successfully without a team that you trust with an unbiased opinion here in Indianapolis, whether that be a property management company who has their own contractors doing the work for you, which I think is a great partnership, by the way,
Yeah.
because they have to rent the house out for what they say, and if the contractor did a bad job, that kind of falls back on them. So it's just a really good way to hold everybody accountable.
Yeah.
And I think too, the biggest thing is the construction. I mean, um, you're doing a flip. I've seen so many people, they have a contractor that takes all of their money, or you know what I mean? And it's just
Yeah.
such a terrible experience. And then they're like, I'm done. I just want out of this deal. And just try not to get in over your head. But I think the biggest thing is to like make it's worth your time to come to Indianapolis, come to a
Yeah.
meetup, just come to a networking thing and meet as many people as you can while you're here. Take a week, and really seriously focus on that. Don't just try to wing it based on your neighbors having success here. Like, oh, I'll just use his contractor, or I'll find my own. They're hard to find,
Yeah.
especially people that you can trust. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest.
Yeah, that was the man. There was some really good nuggets in there, Amy. So that's really good stuff. I think there's a lot of stuff of coming back to like building that team of, I think it's so
Mhm.
important of even just having checks and balances of like, okay, yes, I want to invest in Indy. I'm going to buy a property of Amy. She's great to work with. That's how it works. Or, hey, I'm going to buy a property of Randy or Alicia, whoever you want to work with.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But do
Mhm.
you have a team to like back up what Amy's saying? Does your property manager, your contractor also say like, oh yeah, Amy says the rehab is going to be about this. Yeah, she's right. She's right on it. But I think just checks and balances. That's a big thing in
Yeah.
meeting a team. And you want to have connections here and know people here, but you need to have checks and balances with anybody that you're working with. I think that's
Yeah.
just how I know as we're both in, growing businesses and stuff like that. Like Will wants checks and balances with what he's doing. Like Randy needs to check up on me and things. So that's how it
Yeah,
works.
for
That's how you
sure.
become successful. So,
Mhm.
and then and then also too, some of the stuff that you're saying, I think is just really important for investors to just open their eyes to what's going on. The whole contractor thing is same thing too. As
Mhm.
I'm starting out, I'm probably going to get two contractors. I'm try one on one project and try one on another, see which one works well. I think a lot of people may be getting that habit of like, hey, I'm going to work with this one person and they did a great job for me, and that's awesome. But can somebody be better, or can somebody do it differently? Or I think it's just something that I always look at it like, I'm going to bring on one person, I'm probably going to bring on two and try it out.
Right.
So
Well, even your sources for your properties,
yeah,
I mean, of course I would like you just to buy properties from me, but that's not realistic. I don't have enough
yeah,
properties that fit your niche
yeah,
that you're going to get. I mean, it's so competitive
yeah,
right now. Someone maybe lives in that neighborhood, they're going to bid way more than you, or you need other sources. So the MLS is super competitive right now, and everything goes for crazy amounts that sometimes it's like, how does that even make sense?
Yeah. I think it's
Especially
one of my favorite conversations to have. And I think it's always funny. Like people will be like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but I talked to Amy, yesterday, or I talked
I
to
know.
Evan, or I talked to Ben. Like, yeah, you should be. Like,
I
why would
get
you
that all the
not be?
time. Yeah.
Do you want me to
Like
give you
that's
another, like, do you need somebody else to, like, I'll give you more
Yeah, I
references. Do you
know.
need
You should be talking to more than just,
Yeah.
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 That's what it is. And that's what I think people don't realize is, honestly, like if they're buying properties off you and having success, like that's awesome. I want to know about it because I want to know what
Yeah.
properties to, okay, you bought a 2-1 in Beach Grove from Amy. Awesome. Like
Yeah.
it worked out for you. It's like fit your avatar now. Like that's great. I didn't know that about you. So let's try this again.
Yeah.
Or so I
Exactly.
think that's all good stuff. But that's what I always look at is like, you should be looking at every resource you possibly can for some
Absolutely.
properties right now. So
I do. I get the same thing too. Like, oh, shame on me. I'm like, it's all good. It's all good. It's you should be.
Yeah. So that is talking about just Indianapolis in general and like the market and how great it is for investors. And I think one of my favorite things about it, and I'm at a real estate investing event right now. I'm at a workshop where I'm working with a lot of different real estate investors that are growing businesses, some big names, some small names, some stuff like that. And a common theme or kind of common things that pops up is you can tell what markets are supportive markets in the real estate investor community and which ones aren't.
Okay.
Where somebody can go to somebody and be like, oh, I can't share a resource for here, or I can't talk to this wholesaler because they'll steal my deal or they'll do this kind of stuff. I feel like Indianapolis has a really tight knit, like a strong, competitive, but like a wholesome also, real estate investing community where we like to help each other. We got great Facebook groups, great RIAs, and great people that are doing that here.
Yeah.
Amy, do you feel the same thing? Do you feel like it's a very welcoming community for everybody?
I really do. And I feel like, because we're well connected, because we go to events and we go to networking things and we really try to know, the people here in town, right? You guys do it too. Like I feel like have a good sense of, who's trustworthy. And, I feel like if you do something wrong here, it's a small enough town, like the word would get out, so I feel like we all do a great job of holding each other accountable too and held to a high standard. Because if we don't, people are going to hear about it,
Yeah, no, that's very true. So we like to kind of protect what we have here. And I mean, that's the whole purpose of, why we do want to do this podcast and, why we have people like Amy on here and the amazing things that they do with their team is we're here to help everybody. And we just put out information on like, hey, if you're investing in Indianapolis, we want every investor to be successful in Indianapolis. We want to protect what we have because we do think it's an amazing thing. So that's why we want to put out content like this. And that's why we want to have those conversations and really help out anybody that we can. So on that
we
note,
want to attract the best investors too.
Yeah.
Who are going to care about their properties, not be slumlords and, all that.
That's just it. I have we will cut off somebody that is not treating their tenants the right way. Or like, sorry, I can't sell you a property anymore. And we've been through that and we've had those conversations and Amy and I have had that conversation too. Like, hey, do you know this guy? Like if they bought off of you, like, here's what I'm hearing or this kind of thing. So, so we want to protect
That's the funny thing. I mean, we all talk. So it's like, is that true? Well, I'm just going to check up on that. All right.
Yeah.
That wasn't completely true, but
yeah. So, what's some, I know right now, like we've kind of mentioned this before of like, just that it is competitive and like really, honestly, you should be sourcing your properties from anywhere and everywhere that you can and kind of expanding what you have going on and trying to find anything. What other advice do you have for buyers that are buying in this market right now? That it is super competitive. It is tough to find deals and it's tough to find people are kind of coming outside of their range a little bit too of what their, general avatar is and things. What's some advice you have for buyers that are in that situation?
I mean, I would say really try to be ready with cash. I mean, cash is definitely king. It has been for a really long time, obviously here in this market. And we have so many cash buyers. I think when Will said he first started, there were not near as many cash buyers. People were using a lot more lenders or, just other ways of purchasing properties. So there are definitely, you're competing against that. And if it's hard money, that's fine too, because we work with hard money lenders. And I always tell new investors that I'm talking to, I say, I have a list of hard money lenders that our clients have used. I get nothing for a referral from them, but I'm happy to give you those people because we've had success working with them. They're easy for us to work with. And in the end, we can all do more business if we're working with people that know the market and can move quickly and can be competitive against those cash offers. Even, as
Yeah.
a hard money, you don't even see the difference sometimes.
Yeah. I think it's, and right now is a great time to get cash. Like now is like one of the easiest times ever to be able to get cash or refinance
For
something
sure.
or something like that. So
Yeah.
I say definitely, take advantage of that if you can, and being able to be that cash buyer to come into the door, I think is good. And with the hard money lenders too, I think one of a really, a tip that I always like to tell people too is like right from the start of like, if you're using hard money, just like let us know, like that's fine. But also let
Yeah.
us know who that hard money lender is, because we probably have done a deal with him before, and I can,
I know
I
sometimes
can
they're
call
like,
Constantine and be like, hey, Constantine, here's what's going on. This is our
exactly.
deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's at the top of my list. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like I get a call from a new investor and they're like, oh yeah, I'm set up with a hard money lender, or I'm pre-approved or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, that's not quite enough you have to move quick, so
Yeah.
you want to be ready to go. So if they say a hard money lender I've never heard of, I'm like, I've never heard of them. They're probably fine. I don't know. But here's a list of people who we have worked with. They know the Indy market. They move quickly. They've done tons of deals here. I think that's just really important.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
yeah, no, I think that's huge. And also too,
I
when
mean,
you
to
talk
be
about,
ready, I feel like, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just when it comes to like, being ready for, with money, whether it's cash, whether it's, hard money and stuff like that. I think too, of just like knowing exactly what you do want, kind of get
Mhm.
some of those, and maybe indecisive buyers of like, I'm not sure on this, of like, and that's okay. Take your time to understand it. But then once you do know, and I'd say make sure you do take the time to figure out what you need, but then be specific with it of like, hey, here's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot easier when you say, hey, Amy, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, this square footage, that at this price range needs this amount of work, and is as specific as I can be, and hand it over to Amy.
Yeah.
And then she knows exactly right when that property comes across her plate, they're like, hey, here's where I'm going to with it. And
Yep.
make sure you're updating and being proactive with your deal sources as well. Don't wait for them to send out a deal. Don't wait for them to come to you with the deal. Make sure you're checking
Yeah.
on them too. So like this is kind of a,
Yeah.
where I'm like, hey, I'm all right if you were harassing Randy or Alicia, on our team who you're working with. It's just like, hey, yeah,
Uh-huh.
you should be like, make sure
Yeah.
once they get a deal, they want to,
They
if
keep
you want
you,
one, yep.
yeah, keep you top of mind. I mean, there's so much competition out there. It's funny because I'm working with some people this year that I never sold properties to, probably last year. I work with a lot of repeat clients too. That's probably the majority. But I have some that I'm like, where did you come from? Where have you been? Like you just bought so many deals for me. It's awesome. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like people, investors come and go. You're not always looking for properties. And maybe you're a really small, like you're a one-man band, you're doing one flip at a time, and you're not going to be there all the time with that. For me, it doesn't mean that, you know, the competition beats you out every time. I mean, I feel like come with your A game. And I feel like right now, everything's highest and best. I mean, kind of the way the market is,
Mm-hmm.
we all have to pay a lot of money to get these leads, to get these houses. So we're just trying to more than we've ever had to. And I feel like sellers are more and more savvy every day.
Yeah.
So getting our properties has been, more challenging for the team. So
Yeah. That's what I feel like a lot of people, maybe they don't think about or don't consider or don't like really full heartedly realize that, of like, as hard as it is for them to source deals as well, if it's their criteria, it's also hard for us to source deals as well. We're doing things, we're paying more than we ever have. We're, sourced in different ways than we ever have, using, different
yeah.
strategies and, all that kind of stuff. So it's hard for us to source deals for all of our investors as well, but we're doing our best. We're doing what we can. So
Right.
yeah.
That's right.
All right. Amy, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for everything. I do have one last question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot. I did not prepare you for this question or anything, but I know you love the outdoors. I know that you like to do camping. I've seen your pictures of you fly fishing and things like that. So let's say if somebody wants to come to Indianapolis and they are that outdoorsy people or the outdoorsy person, because this was me. I moved to Indianapolis. I'm an outdoorsy person. Love to be outdoors. I moved to Indy and I was like, where do I go? Like, I don't know where to hang out. Like everything's flat. Like I need some trees. I need some trails. Like where do you recommend somebody comes into Indy? It can be, around the Indy area. Where can they go and like just be one with nature and kind of experience that a little bit?
I mean, I feel like Indianapolis has so many great parks, but I don't have a lot of experience in those, so I'm not great advice for that. We go all the way, by Brookville, Indiana, huge reservoir, great for hiking, great for fishing the tailwaters of the dam.
Nice.
So Indiana has some really great lakes. Not a lot super close to Indianapolis, but you can find like Lake Monroe down in Bloomington. So that's like what, an hour and a half from here. Brookville's about an hour and 45 minutes. There's a bunch of places to go, but I mean, that's where I usually
There you go.
go.
I'm glad I asked that question for myself because I've never been to
Because you haven't
Brooklyn
been there
before.
yet?
So yeah, so I need to check that out. So sounds like a
Indiana's
great place
got
to
so
take the
many great
kayak and go.
small towns. Yeah, for sure. You could take your kayak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just floated down the White River with our church youth group, my kiddos, and like we in Noblesville, we get on, and I'd never done that before. So we floated on inner tubes. So that was interesting. I didn't see any snakes, but my kids did.
So great. I really appreciate that. And yeah, there's some good places out in outdoor Indy, around to get outdoors and experience stuff. You maybe have to travel outside of Indy to do it a little bit more if you're looking at places like Brookville or like Monroe or Brown County or Turkey Run or Shade State Park, things like that. But there's some nature here. Cool Creek Cool Creek Park in Carmel's kind of a good place. Got some good trails to hike around a little bit. But so that's It's always good to go out there. I know you're a nature lover. You're getting ready to go up to Michigan to do some camping and stuff like that, right? So,
we are. Yep, we're excited. Do some fishing, hang out on the beach a little bit, Lake Michigan Beach.
There you go. All right, Amie. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Great insights for just Indianapolis in general and for buyers that are looking for properties. If somebody wants to reach out, know more about you, know more about what you guys are doing, or just connect with you and say, Amie, I need deals right now. Get me on your list. Get me on that. Here's exactly what I'm looking for. They're going to be specific with you right now and say, hey, here's exactly what I need. Can you send me one once you get it? Where can they go and how can they reach you?
Okay, so my email is Amie. It's AMIE at New Paradox. It's NUPARADOX.com. And then our website is newparadox.com. And my phone number, can we get my phone number?
Do whatever you want.
All right. It's area code 630-303-3444. That's my cell.
That's how I can always determine who the salespeople are and who's not. When I have on the podcast, the salespeople always want to give their cell phone and they're okay with it.
I know, right? I'm like, here's everything.
So, no, good stuff. And if you need anything from me at all, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at brian@simplewholesaling.com. More than happy to help. And with that, that's a wrap for this episode of the Indy Investor Pod. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks for having me.